Good morning, everybody, and happy Easter from me, Payton, and my newborn son, Arlo. You know, Arlo was brought into my wife and I's life a week ago. It was a little Easter surprise for us. And as I looked at my new son, my firstborn, and I thought about the journey that we've been on with him, of my wife telling me, coming in the room and telling me she's pregnant for the first time, us not really believing it, watching her body transform, watching this little guy grow inside of her. And listen, I'm not a science guy. I don't know how it works in there, what's happening. So for me, I look at this little guy who I love with everything that I have, and I think this is a miracle. That this little bundle of joy that brings me so much joy and laughter and tears, that he was once nothing and now he is something. He grew almost out of nowhere. And God does this. This is like an imprint. This is how God works in the world from trees that we see, right? Who are little seeds, acorns, tiny little seeds are buried in the ground. They actually die in the ground, and then they grow into magnificent trees and flowers that we can enjoy. And we don't know how it happens. I mean, we do. I don't know how it happens, but it's a miracle every time I see something so small turn into something so miraculous. You know, this is how God works, more than just with the children and with trees. This is how God works in the world, with all of our lives. You know, there's times whenever we feel like there's no way out of this. We're in the darkest moments of our life, of an addiction, of temptation, of a family falling apart, of our life spinning out of control, of no direction, of the unknown. Like, God, how are you going to work in this moment? And speaking of gardens, the story of Easter, it begins in a garden and it ends in a garden. It's a tale of two gardens, about how God takes a moment where it seems like there's no way out and he transforms it into something amazing. Let's talk about those gardens. So talking about two gardens, let's start on Friday, the Garden of Gethsemane. In John's gospel, it talks Jesus and his disciples, they go to the garden. This is the night that Jesus is arrested. And Jesus tells his disciples, you stay here while I go over there and pray. And Jesus is praying to prepare himself for the mission of that weekend, of Easter weekend, of the death, the torture, the crucifixion that he would experience. He knows all of this. And I love that phrase, you stay here while I go and pray. It's the gospel in the nutshell. It's like, you stay here and I, Jesus, the Messiah, will go and do the work. I will prepare for the work. I will stay diligent through the work, and I will go through with it. And so Jesus does what he says he would. He goes and he prays, and the disciples, they fall asleep. And while Jesus is by himself praying, he prays to God. God, if there's any other way that you could take this cup from me, and we don't have time to break down the cup metaphor in the Old Testament, but in essence, it's the wrath of God. If you have any other way for your wrath of anger to be any other place, let it be so, but your will be done. I mean, Jesus, he's living out the Lord's Prayer. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. God, your will be done over my own. And we can't understand God's love if we don't understand God's wrath and anger and judgment of a world that's broken and not how it's supposed to be. And Jesus says, I will take on that punishment to save the rest of the world. He returns back to the disciples who are asleep. 3 times he goes back to them and says, are you asleep? Wake up. My time is approaching. Are you asleep? Wake up. My time is approaching. Can you not just stay awake? But they're human, just like us, in that garden where we let Jesus down. We fall back into that temptation. We get angry at our family. We work too long in the office. We have self-doubt. We fall back into our human nature. But Jesus stays faithful all the way till he says, the time is near, my betrayer is approaching. And it's like dramatic music. Dun, dun, dun. Who is this betrayer? It's Judas. Someone who laughed with him, loved him, walked with him, washed their feet together, watched miracles. And you think, man, Judas messed this up. If I would have seen everything Jesus did in his ministry, I wouldn't have messed up. Is that really so? How many things do we see working in our life that we don't give credit to God, ways God is working and yet we still doubt Him, yet we still fail, yet we still hurt our fellow human, yet we still doubt ourselves. Then we have our psychological damage and emotional damage and spiritual damage, all these things of ways I don't trust God even though I have every reason I should. The Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus is betrayed, He's alone, He cries out to God and He feels betrayed even by God. He doubts His own mission, He's broken. That's Friday. And then we move into Saturday. And Saturday is one of those days that we like to skip in the Easter story. We like to move from the crucifixion of Jesus to the resurrection of Jesus, but we forget that there was an entire day that Jesus lay dead in a tomb. It's a day of hopelessness. When Jesus was on the cross, His disciples thought, well, He can send 10,000 angels. There's still hope. Maybe He'll click over. Maybe something will happen. At the resurrection, which we'll get to in a moment, we see the hope and a transformation of what a renewal of the world looks like. But on Saturday, it's desperateness. But we have to hate death in order to fully appreciate life. We have to feel the sting of death, feel the sting of guilt, feel the sting of grief, feel the sting of betrayal, feel the sting of loneliness in order to fully appreciate that Sunday is coming. And that's what today is all about. It's Resurrection Sunday. And early that morning of Sunday morning, we're back into a garden. And it's not like the Garden of Gethsemane, where all hope is draining from everybody involved. It is a garden of hope. And some women come to a garden, and they see a rock rolled away from the entry of Jesus' tomb. They think his tomb's been robbed. Maybe some outcast disciples took it to make look like Jesus was resurrected. Maybe some people stole it to sell away his goods. Who knows, but his body is gone, and the only explanation is some kind of human explanation. Like, he's gone, there's no way of any other possibility. They go, they see the empty tomb, they run back to the disciples. Peter and John, they get excited. They run back to the tomb. They're looking everywhere. They can't find his body. And the women, they're approached by a man they think is a gardener. And I love John's depiction in John's gospel of this moment. There's two angels. They said, who are you looking for? He's not here, just Jesus is not here. A gardener approaches them. They say, if his body is somewhere, if you hid his body, just let us know, we'll go get it. And Jesus says to the women who don't recognize him, women, what are you looking for? We're looking for Jesus. And then something amazing happens in John's gospel. All Jesus does is say Mary's name, Mary. And it's like a light clicks over. Jesus becomes personal, and the light clicks, and Mary recognizes who it is she is talking to. It is her resurrected Lord. And here's why I love that story. John's telling this click of using Mary's name is that the resurrected Messiah, the one that we've been building up to, the one who defeated death, the one who has that kind of power, that God is personal. It's not a God that went away to his throne and decides to judge from a distance. It's a God who knows his people, his creation, his disciples, his followers. He knows you by name. And he calls out to you. If you are searching for me, if you are looking for the resurrected Messiah, the one who has power over death, he will call you by name, Mary. He will call you by name because he knows you. His death, his burial, his resurrection, it was for you. And this is the hope of Easter Sunday. That all of the pain and betrayal that we experience on Friday, all of the grief and unknown and loneliness we experience on Saturday, it's all turned around and transformed when it's enlightened and brought to forth, and we see the resurrected Messiah, and he calls us by name. It was for you. It was for you that I did these things. So like we talked about at the beginning of this video, Jesus, he does something amazing. God is doing something in this world. And even in the moments that we don't know what's happening, in the darkness of a moment, God is going to make something amazing happen from it. And so in your darkest moments, this feeling isn't just secluded to one weekend. It's not just about Easter. This is our story. This is a story that we live into. Every day is Easter. Every day is Resurrection Day because our Lord is resurrected and the hope He gives us, it's alive every day. That's what Easter is about.